Hello, everyone, and welcome to In the Trenches, Crawl's weekly threat intelligence briefing. Today is the 19th of May, and my name is George Glass. Joining me today is Mukesh Nagar and Ethan Afory. As always, we'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's get into the situation report. Just one story this week, but quite a big one. Coinbase has released a blog post and filed a SEC Form 8K reporting an incident whereby they received an email attempting to extort the company for $20 million. According to the post, the threat actors approached customer support staff and used cash offers to convince a small group of insiders to copy data in their customer support tools. Stolen data includes personal details, including identity documents, and account data, including balance and transaction history. It's highly likely that this information will be weaponized for phishing and fraud purposes and could pose a physical risk to those with high account balances. Certainly one that we'll be keeping a close eye on there. If you have any questions or comments, please do get in touch with us using cti@kroll.com. So in the rest of today's briefing, we're going to be covering a lot of zero-day vulnerabilities. I will be talking about cyber actors engaging in the Pakistan-India conflict. I also have the month's Patch Tuesday, which has some zero-day exploits in there, and a zero-day in Fortinet devices. Mukesh is covering zero days in Ivanti products and another exploited zero-day in SAP NetWeaver. And in the ransomware roundup section this week, Ethan has some good news of a threat actor's arrest. So as tensions continue in the Kashmir region, it probably comes as a little surprise that cyber-related incidents have been affecting both Pakistan and India as a result of that. A report by Seqrite Labs state that a wave of cyber espionage activity by a Pakistan-linked threat actor known as Sidecopy, which we track as KTA 460, and is associated with APT36 or Transparent Tribe, has expanded its targeting beyond traditional Indian defense and government entities. The group is now focusing on sectors such as railways, oil and gas, and the Ministry of External Affairs. Analysts at Seqrite Labs have observed a tactical evolution of the group's approach, notably that they have deployed a previously undocumented malware strain dubbed Pearlback Rat. The malware, alongside SparkRat and a custom build of XenoRat, is being distributed by phishing emails carrying decoy documents tailored to Indian public sector employees. One of the big technical changes here is the shift from HTA files to MSI installers for payload delivery. That sort of increases the stealth and increases the likelihood of bypassing antivirus applications. It's also detailed in the report that the new style of DLL sideloading and reflective code loading techniques again make the malware more challenging for defense tools to detect. Recommendations here are to obviously include this threat intelligence into your detection engineering function. Kroll's confident in our ability to detect the TTPs that these threat actors are using, and of course, employee education. Next up, let's talk about Patch Tuesday. So in May's patch cycle, there are 20 elevation of privilege vulnerabilities, 29 remote code execution vulnerabilities, 17 critical vulnerabilities, and a whopping 5 zero days. First of which affects Microsoft DWM core library. This is an elevation of privilege vulnerability, which allows an attacker to elevate privileges to system level. Microsoft did not share any information about how this vulnerability has been exploited in the wild. 2 of the addressed vulnerabilities affect the Windows Common Log File System driver. We've talked about this a number of times before. In this instance, Microsoft did not share how these vulnerabilities were exploited in attacks. However, we've previously reported, and it's previously been reported by Microsoft, that CLFS zero-day vulnerabilities have been used to deploy the Pipe Magic backdoor And in those cases, it led to ransomware. So it's possible that those additional vulnerabilities were discovered in similar attacks. Moving down the list, there's a Microsoft ancillary function driver for WinSock elevation of privilege vulnerability. Again, we've covered WinSock PrivESC vulnerabilities in the past. This particular one is a use after free vulnerability. Again, that allows an unauthorized attacker to escalate privileges to administrator. Technical details were not shared in that particular case. Last of the 0 days is a scripting engine memory corruption vulnerability. This is a type confusion vulnerability that allows an unauthenticated attacker to remotely execute code over the network. Microsoft notes that successful exploitation of this vulnerability requires an attacker to first prepare the target so that it uses Edge in Internet Explorer mode. And that is, a user is required to click a specially crafted URL to successfully exploit the vulnerability. Now, we typically see these lower CVSS scores as, it's essentially there needs to be some user interaction. In this case, I don't think that's particularly difficult. It's also worth noting that this vulnerability can also affect MS-HTML, and Microsoft recommends that administrators install the IE cumulative updates to protect against this vulnerability. And then lastly, I've just pulled out 3 additional vulnerabilities here. These affect Microsoft Office and specifically Microsoft Excel. Again, no technical information shared about these vulnerabilities, but as always, anything that affects Office and Excel can quickly lead to a remote code execution if a threat actor can smuggle a malicious file inside a network. So certainly ones to look at. Next up from me, I have some news of a Fortinet vulnerability that's been exploited in the wild. This is CVE 2025-32756. It carries a CVSS score of 9.8, and as mentioned before, it has been exploited in the wild. This vulnerability affects FortiVoice, FortiMail, FortiNDR, FortiRecorder, and FortiCamera, and allows a remote, unauthenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code or commands via a specially crafted HTTP request. In their advisory, Fortinet states that the vulnerability has been exploited against FortiVoice only. They did not provide a timeline for the observed exploitation, and no attribution to a particular threat group has been made at this time. Fortinet observed the threat actor performing reconnaissance, erasing logs, and making changes to capture credentials from the device. As part of their advisory, they also released a number of IP addresses, which you can see there on the screen, and they're available in our report. Crawl Threat Intelligence has already added these to our threat feeds, but it's advised that these IPs are blocked at the network boundary. Obviously, updating to the fixed Fortinet versions as soon as possible kind of goes without saying. The management console for these devices also should not be exposed to the open internet. Okay, and with that, I will hand over to Mukesh to take us through the next set of 0 days. Over to you, Mukesh.
Thank you, George. So Ivanti has released patches for 2 0 days in Endpoint Manager Mobile, or commonly known as EPMM. So these patches address 1 medium and 1 high severity vulnerabilities, which when chained together, successful exploitation could lead to unauthenticated remote code executions. The vulnerabilities identified are being tracked as CVE 2025-4427 with a CVS score of 5.3 and CVE 2025-4428 with a CVS score of 7.2. CVE 2025-4427 is an authentication bypass in EPMM's API component, allowing attackers to access protected resources on vulnerable devices. And CVE 2025-4428 is a remote code execution vulnerability that would allow an attacker to execute arbitrary code on targeted systems via a maliciously crafted API request. Now, Ivanti advises customers impacted to install the fixed versions in order to mitigate the threat from the vulnerabilities, as well as following the best practice guidance of filtering access to the API using either the built-in access or control list portal functionality or an external WAF. Ivanti also advises customers. That's everything for me for the Ivanti 0-day. Now over to SAP. SAP has released a second set of patches for another 0-day vulnerability relating to SAP NetWeaver. This vulnerability is being tracked as CVE 2025-42999 with a CVS score of 9.1. The vulnerability was announced through a security note 3594142 and 3604119, following observed exploitation activities dating back to January 2025. The vulnerability allows a privileged user to upload an untrusted or malicious content, which, when deserialized, could potentially lead to a compromise of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the host system. Kroll has recently been investigating and monitoring activities related to the SAP NetWeaver vulnerabilities very closely and have observed evidence pointing to APT activities, which we will have more to share on with you all very soon. In the meantime, if you are affected and have not patched your SAP NetWeaver devices, we do recommend applying SAP security notes patches that have been mentioned in 3594142 and 3604119. We also recommend carrying out an audit and minimize of Visual Composer user roles. We also recommend restricting access to the metadata uploader service from untrusted network. And as always, contact Kroll on cti@kroll.com if you believe you are impacted, as the vulnerabilities have been exploited in the wild. That's everything for me, George. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Mukesh, and hopefully now some good news from Ethan. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, George. So on May 6, 2025, in Moldova, authorities arrested a 45-year-old foreign national suspected of involvement in the Doppelpayment ransomware group. The arrest was a part of a joint operation with Dutch law enforcement targeting the suspect for ransomware attacks, blackmail, and money laundering, primarily focused on Dutch organizations. During the search of the suspect's home and car, officials seized 2 laptops, a tablet, mobile phone, 6 bank cards, multiple storage devices, an electronic wallet, and around 90,000 euros in cash. He remains in custody and is awaited to be extradited to the Netherlands. The suspect is believed to have played a key role in the 2021 ransomware attack on a Dutch research body. That incident caused approximately 4.5 million euros in damage and forced the organization offline for weeks. After the research body refused to pay the ransom, the attackers published stolen files on the dark web. Doppelpaymer first appeared in 2019, which was built off code from BitPaymer, which is a malware leaked to the Russian cybercrime group Evil Corp. The group operated under a ransomware as a service model and was known for targeting critical infrastructure, healthcare, education, and the private industry. Over time, they even rebranded as Grief and Entropy to evade law enforcement. Despite multiple arrests, including coordinated raids in 2023, key figures remain at large, with ties pointing back to Russia. Thank you, George.
Thank you very much, Ethan. And that's all we have for this week. If you have any questions, please remember to contact us at cti@kroll.com. Next week, we'll be coming out on Tuesday, as it's a bank holiday, so we'll see you all then. Have a great day.